But keep in mind, on a budget, don't 1DX Mark II mean can't nobody afford that but Peter McKinnon. What's up, YouTube? 4K vlogging on a budget. That's what we're going to talk about today, and namely our budget hero, the Panasonic G7, best bang for your buck 4K vlogging camera, and not the Canon M50. We're going to talk about why in a second, but before we talk about it, if you like what we're doing, please give us a subscribe. If you don't like what we're doing, that's okay too. Just comment down below and let us know what your best 4K vlogging camera is, or your favorite. But keep in mind, on a budget, don't 1DX Mark II mean can't nobody afford that but Peter McKinnon. Okay, the rest of you that are dying to comment to let us know that you don't need 4K in 2018, 2016, 2014 for YouTube, that's fine. You can not like 4K for vlogging or for anything else because you don't like the file size in your timeline, or your camera doesn't do it, or whatever. We think there are some positives to using 4K, namely the ability to punch in and the ability, if you're on YouTube, to get that higher bit rate. YouTube allows you a higher bit rate even for your 1080p version of your video, your 1080p stream. If you upload in 4K, look it up. It's a thing. We recognized it early on when we started doing videos a couple of years ago. So, just to remind you, this is not going to be a review of the G7 or the Canon M50. We're going to talk about our likes and dislikes of both, but there's a lot of people that have reviewed this thing to death that are better at it than we are. They can give you all the technical details that you want. We're going to hit some high-level specs, but mainly we are a price-driven channel. We have a website that is a real-time price guide for used camera gear. It allows you to build bundles. It allows you to set alerts, and that's kind of where we live. We got gas just like everybody else. We love our camera gear, but there are people that do reviews far better than we do. So generally, we don't do the in-depth reviews. We spend more of our time talking about value, how to save you money, and where the industry trends are going in terms of pricing. Okay, Panasonic G7. It's been out for a while. That's why I said you can find some reviews on it. It's been out for a while, and it's really held up. Great 4K image. It's still definitely a budget camera, but even new, its price point is really affordable. It was affordable on launch. There's some things we like about it, some things we don't like about it, but namely, when you compare it to the M50, first of all, the price. The price is a good bit better, both new and used. The price is so low that we couldn't even find a body-only new at a B&H or an Adorama. They're only doing it with the 1442 kit, which is a good vlogging kit. That's the one we're going to price out in a minute. The Canon M50, for what it is, if you released it maybe a year ago before some of the developments have happened with the A7 III, which I know is a more expensive camera, and some other announcements in the video space, for what Canon had previously had, it's priced pretty well. But when you put it up against what else is in the market, it's become a pretty fiercely competitive space. That entry to mid-level 4K, it doesn't even hold up at that price point, which is pretty crazy. And we're going to talk about price specifically in a minute. But first, let's talk about our likes and dislikes. Okay, for the M50, we've already kind of talked about what we don't like. We hate the huge crop in 4K. It actually ends up being a bigger crop than on this teeny tiny sensor. See if the light can catch it. We can get a little autofocus. That guy is tiny, and it's got less of a crop than the Canon M50. And we all know that Canon loves the dual pixel autofocus. Everybody loves it that uses it. It's really good, but it is not present in 4K. And I think, and a lot of people will agree, that Canon is intentionally crippling these downline cameras to protect their higher end products, which makes sense in a lot of ways when you're the market leader and you don't have any competition. It does not make sense when you have competition. Also, this has a cleaner picture in 4K. It kind of looks better, and Canon has come a long way with their 1080p because it used to be super soft, but it's still not great. I do think they dropped motion JPEG, which is good because that was not great. Like I said, considerably cheaper. The autofocus is better in 4K on the Panasonic, even though we know Panasonic isn't great at autofocus. It's better in 4K because you lose that dual pixel autofocus and it's contrast only without any sort of help on the Canon, so it ends up being pretty bad, and you can see that in basically any video out there. Some other pros and cons: the Micro Four Thirds is going to have a much more robust native lens allocation than the Canon EFM platform, and that's another place where Canon has shown that they say they're invested in mirrorless, but they haven't equipped mirrorless purchasers with the same robustness that you can find on the Canon DSLR EF lens mount. The G7 lacks IBIS, which isn't great if you're vlogging, but there are a lot of IBIS lenses on the Micro Four Thirds platform that's in-body image stabilization. The Canon has this digital software thing that's okay. It's not great. Sometimes it's worse than not having it at all. The G85, if you need in-body image stabilization, the G85 is the next step up from the G7, and we would recommend that camera if you've got the extra bucks because it's a more robust camera all around. The G7 shoots 4K 30. The Canon's 4K 24p. That's an issue for a lot of people. It's not for us as we shoot in 24p, but that is something else you would need to consider. Overall, we'd say that these issues aren't total deal breakers for going in the M50 route, especially if you can live with 1080p. The issue is that the G7 is a good bit cheaper. And when we say a good bit cheaper, you're already starting at a pretty low price point. So a good bit cheaper might only mean a couple $100, but that could also mean like 25%. So that can also get you a decent prime. Decent primes, by the way, they don't have on the EFM platform. So that's something you need to consider. And so now we're going to take a minute and just price out a bundle for each of these platforms. And then we're going to come back and look at pricing for alternatives to both of these if you want to go in a different direction. Maybe you got a little bit more money, so you don't want to go lowest bottom of the barrel, even though this is a good, nice, clean picture in 4K. Maybe you've got some budget for either a different platform that has better glass, or you want to stay in this Micro Four Thirds, but you want that in-body image stabilization. We're going to talk about those alternatives in addition to giving you some pricing on both of these, so let's check it out. So let's go ahead and do the Canon M50 first to get a baseline, and you'll notice that we don't even have enough data yet to show a chart for price history because it's so new, but we are advising 722 used. We've got a couple data points that would indicate that's about the used price. 779 would be new, body only. We'll go ahead and add that to the bundle, and then we're going to do this with a Canon 15 to 45 millimeter. And just know that B&H and Adorama are currently running a kit sell with this lens involved. So 142 new would push us over a little bit what the actual deal price that they're running right now, and we can see that in our bundle. 921, it's really 899, and then 848 is what we're advising on the individual eBay kind of price. We don't have one from a trusted seller yet. KEH, B&H used, that's what that trusted seller is. So it's showing a 0 value, so you can ignore that because there's just no data yet. It's that new. Let's go ahead and clear this bundle and then look at the Panasonic G7, and you'll see that this one is 411 is what we're advising on the used price. And let's go back and just take a look at it real quick and see what kind of data we've got for that, just to see if this is holding up. Yeah, I think this price is pretty good. Sorry, go back. The price is pretty good here. You'll notice sometimes we'll misidentify this as a body only when really it's a bundle. And then you'll see a lot of the bundles with the 1442 because it comes with a kit. That's pretty standard. So 411 is pretty good. 597 is because we're showing body only price, but it's because we couldn't find any body only deals on any of the main retailers. Are all selling it bundled with the kit lens. And just keep that in mind that we're showing you $597 is a new price, but we want to go ahead and price this out individually just in case you want to save a little money buying used. We want to give you a good price guideline for that. So here's that lens, $247 new, $100 used, and this is actually a pretty great lens to start out with. It's sharp, it's crisp. The 3.5 to 5.6, it's a little slow, but if you're just doing a little handheld vlogging and you need that wide shot, but the flexibility of a zoom, this is a good way to go. So let's go ahead and add this to our bundle. And then take a look at this. So before we were around 850 used, we're 511 with this setup, with all the positives compared to the Canon M50 that's used. And then new is actually, this is actually not the price because it's double dipping on this and the kit. The actual price is $597 because this includes the kit. Unfortunately, we don't have a new body only price. It's throwing our numbers off a little bit. So $597, $599, somewhere in there is what you're going to pay new versus the $899. So either way, used or new, you're saving about $300 to $330 going the Panasonic route. What if you wanted to do something else? So what are some other options in this space? What about the Fuji X-T20? This is another one that doesn't have IBIS, but it's got a nice 4K image. It's got a pretty robust lens lineup for it. It also is a place where you can graduate to professional lenses, but it's not cheap. So our recommendation for this would be the 18 to 55 kit lens. And this is a phenomenal kit lens, but you'll notice pretty quickly that we're pricing ourselves not out of the game entirely, but when you're getting into $1,000 now, that opens us up to some other options. But if you remember, we're paying $850 used for the Canon M50. This is a considerably better option, in my opinion, in terms of both a great still shooter, which the Canon M50 is going to be a better still shooter than the Panasonic all day long. But I like this X-T20 as a still shooter over the Canon mirrorless, even though it's not as new. This X-Trans sensor has got a little bit of life on it. This is definitely one I would recommend if you want to play that hybrid game. There are some limitations for the X-T20 versus the regular X-T2, but for the money, you really can't beat it. This is actually a little high. You can probably get this right now around $650, and you can probably get this lens around $275, but still, we're looking at $900 to $1,000 for that. All right, so what if you wanted to graduate to the Panasonic G85 and get that in-body image stabilization and a little more beefy camera? It's got some more features that give it an advantage over the G7, but also add an expense. You notice 628, that's a little high. You can probably get this about 600 in the forums. If you want that instant eBay gratification, you are going to pay a little bit more, but 628 is a good price for that. And then what I would recommend for this, you could always go the 1442 route because obviously that lens would work. But if we're graduating to a little more capable setup, then I would recommend the 12 to 60 OIS. This is also another great lens for video. And still, look at this. We're at the same price that we were with the Canon M50 used, with a far better lens and, in my opinion, a far better camera, especially for vlogging. So this has got actual real in-body image stabilization as opposed to the software digital image stabilization in M50. It still has a 4K crop, not as bad as the Canon, and obviously you have access to all of the Micro Four Thirds lineup. So one more, I know y'all make fun of me for going the Samsung NX route, but I just want to show you this real quick. This is a 4K This is a 4K smaller camera that's great for vlogging. Got the flippy screen. The prices have been dropping like crazy on Samsung's bodies since the announcement of the A7 III. Now, why also did it impact the NX500? This is the same sensor as the much more expensive, capable NX1 that people use in professional video work that has been kind of a cult hero in terms of its video capabilities. It's got a 1.5 crop in 4K, but it's got the same sensor and stills image capabilities that the NX1 has, which are phenomenal. And I would argue that this 28 megapixel sensor as a still shooter is probably gonna wipe the mat with a Canon M50. Just all around, this is a much better option. Let's only look at the used here because they don't make this anymore. $389, you can actually get this for about $350 if you're patient. It comes with a 16 to 50 power zoom lens. That kit's generally around $500. Let's add that. So there's two 16 to 50s. There's this just ridiculously awesome professional lens, and then there's this one that's actually still pretty good with video. OIS, there's no in-body image stabilization on the Samsung body, but it's got it in the lens. This is a really good video lens as well. And this kit right here, $542, you can get around $500 if you're looking on eBay together. For $500, it's $350 less than the M50 and beats it in every conceivable way as a vlogging camera. All right, so that's going to wrap it up. Our best bang for your buck value 4K camera in 2018 is still going to be the Panasonic G7. A lot of staying power with that one. We like it over the Canon M50, even though the M50 is probably a much better stills camera if you're using it for vlogging. Irrespective of price, even though the Panasonic's about $350 cheaper in the secondary market with that kit lens, even not considering price, we think it's a better camera just as a pure vlogging option. I'm actually filming this segment with the G7 so you can kind of get an idea of what you could expect from the G7 from a 4K vlogging standpoint. Keep in mind, I'm not a professional and this is just a kit lens, the 1442 cheap kit lens on a $400 body, and you're still getting a pretty good picture out of it. This is standard profile, no color grading. Let's see, can it follow me around? Maybe it can, maybe it can't, but notice once it locks in, it doesn't hunt as much as you've probably seen in the Canon videos in 4K without that dual pixel autofocus. All right, so just for a reminder, if you like this video, give us a like. If you love it, we'd love a subscribe. And either way, let us know what your favorite value vlogging camera, 4K camera in 2018 is. And yes, I know some of you are going to educate us on how we don't need it. But that's okay. We're happy to mix it up with you in the comments as well. Thanks so much, y'all. Have a great week, and God bless.